Welcome to the our Legal Tech Week for June 26, 2020. This is Bob Ambrogi. I'm the host of the Law Sites blog, the publisher of the Law Sites blog, the host of the Law Next podcast, and I'll be moderating today. And let's go around and introduce our panelists. And we have a new panelist joining us today. So Victor Lee, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks, Bob, for having me. My name is Victor Lee. I am an assistant managing editor with the ABA Journal. I cover the business of law, which also includes technology, and I've been there for about 6.5 years now. And standard disclaimer, whenever I do these things, I do not speak for the ABA, nor do I speak for the ABA Journal. I only speak for myself.
All right. I describe you to somebody as a recovering tech writer.
Well, before the ABA Journal, I worked at Legal Tech News.
Right.
And it was a lot of technology news back then. And then, now I just mainly do editing.
Yeah, good. Joe Patrice.
Joe Patrice from Above the Law. I also host some podcasts, Thinking Like a Lawyer. We have an ATL COVID cast. And briefly over the weekend, I believe I was U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, just briefly.
Good choice. Victoria Hudgens, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Victoria. I'm a reporter with Legal Tech News, where I cover cybersecurity, tech, data privacy, and just how tech is impacting legal services and lawyers.
All right. Caroline Hill.
Hi there, Caroline Hill, Editor-in-Chief of Legal IT Insider, not recovering tech writer, still very much present tech writer. I write about every aspect of legal tech, and I've been editor since 2014.
All right. Let's see. Zach Warren.
Hey there. My name is Zach Warren. I'm the editor-in-chief of Legal Tech News. That's with ALM. So my reporting is not only at LTN, but the American Lawyer, Corporate Counsel, and all those ALM brands.
And from her beautiful living room. Wait a minute. You changed your background again. So Nikki Black.
Coming from my library. I am Nikki Black, the legal technology evangelist with MyCase. We provide law practice management software for law firms. I am an avid writer. I write about legal tech prolifically at ABA Journal. I have a column at Above the Law. I write for the Daily Record, which is a Dolan Media publication, and for the MyCase blog, among others.
All right. I briefly worked for Dolan Media way back a long time ago, among my various jobs I've had over the years. I was in Idaho, publisher of a newspaper in Idaho briefly for Dolan. That was interesting.
Yeah.
So we, over the last couple of weeks, we've had a guest on this show. We're not going to have a guest today. We'll do our kind of usual roundtable, talk about some of the top stories of the week. But also, we have billed this as an Ask Us Anything episode. So if there's anybody out there listening who wants to ask us a question in our role as journalists and reporters and editors covering legal technology, throw it in the chat panel there, and we will happily take your question. If you don't have any questions, that's fine. We will just proceed with our roundtable. I did want to, because for I think the last 3 episodes, I've been kicking the can down the road of somebody who had asked us a question 3 episodes ago of kind of what's the best way to reach out to us to pitch us with a story. And I don't know if that person is with us today. I don't think so. But that's okay, because we're going to put the recording up and maybe he'll watch it. So any tips on what's the best way for somebody who wants to get in touch with you, thinks they have a story that you might be interested in? What's the best way for them to do that? Who wants to take that?
Yeah.
Well, there we go.
No, you go. You go.
No, you go.
Oh, okay. So in terms of, just the obvious, really. So I think where my contact details are widely spread, and probably all of ours are, like, there's no kind of like confidentiality. They're widely spread, and I think email, or I actually I don't know how unusual I am. I'd be interested to get other people's thoughts on this. I've been told by PRs that I'm quite unusual in liking the phone. I know the phone's going very much out of fashion. I actually, because I get so overwhelmed by my emails, if you've got a good story, I really love to just pick up the phone and go, hey, maybe they sent an email. I think it's quite handy to have it in an email because obviously we get a lot of information and we have to process a lot of detail. So I think for me, the preference is send an email so that I've got it all down there. And I don't have to kind of scribble notes that I'm going to lose, and then phone me up, right? And just say, obviously it's not convenient, and just say. But I think actually that for me, I still really like that personal approach, and also just drawing it to my attention. And it's also I'm quite into the relationship, the old-fashioned relationship building thing, because I don't know about anybody else, but I get lost in a sea of emails. So for me, that dual approach is quite helpful.
Yeah. Joe, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say TikTok is usually what I like to accept things through. No, we have. So I do have emails.
And they have to do a video and send it to you. And
just that or memes. If you reach out, we have emails at Above the Law. I'm Joe at Above the Law, but it's actually best to write at tips at Above the Law. That way, in case I'm engaged, one of the other that goes to all of us. So one of the other editors has an opportunity to get at it. We do monitor our Twitter and Facebook as well. More Twitter for people sending things. Like I get DM tips a lot, but those are probably the best.
One of the things that amazes me is that you guys actually do read the tips at Above the Law. I mean, you must get a million tips all day, but I mean, I've communicated with you that way through that email address, and I get responses right away.
Yeah, anytime somebody's not writing, we're usually on it trying to keep up. We probably get one every minute or so. So it's that kind of thing. So if you get 10, 20 minutes behind, it's not that bad. You can get through those pretty well.
Yeah. Who else wants to speak to that? Victor, what about the ABA Journal? What's a good way to
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what Joe said. I mean, obviously I'm accessible, victor.li@americanbar.org. I always like to get email pitches. Also, it's also good to kind of email our general I think it's webmaster at americanbar.org. It's just, it's one of those things where I know, it's not always possible to have like that personal touch with an editor, like when you're pitching them. But one thing that always catches my attention is because I always assume, I don't know if everyone else does, I always assume that these pitches go to like everybody. They're basically mass pitching all these.
Right.
All these various organizations, and that's fine. I mean, that's how you get the most nibbles. But
right.
But for me, I always respond to is like if someone sees like something that I've written in the past, or they see like an article that we ran that resonated with them, or is related to what they're pitching, then they'll say something like, "Hey, I read this story that you guys ran, a month ago on this. Kind of related to that. We have this thing that we're doing that." Blah, blah, blah. So, I tend to respond more to those because then it shows that, okay, they've actually taken the time to, find out like what we do, like what kind of stories we publish and what kind of things are important to us.
Yeah.
And
the problem with those pitches that go to all of us is that we're all still sleeping while Caroline is already up and writing. So
the thing is that we have the same or similar model as well. It's in terms of if people offer it to us early or exclusively. I think that, and that you're being given, and we all get it. Let's be honest. So I think that really helps, and that Victor, that personal touch, that saying, right, this is for you, rather than just done the round robin. I think that's really helpful.
Yeah. Anything else? Zach, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, just one thing I'm actually curious from everybody else, at least for me, it's like email and phone are up here, but I've really seen recently a trend of people reaching out to me either via LinkedIn or Twitter with story ideas. And that's kind of down here for me, just because I'm not thinking of social media as a news tool throughout the day. So I've had people like reach out to me 10 a.m. with a LinkedIn message saying, "Hey, I want to talk to you about this story idea." I'm not seeing it, and then I'll get an email like 1 p.m. like, "Hey, I sent this over to you via LinkedIn earlier," and it's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry. If you had sent it to me via email, I probably would have seen it a lot sooner."
So the problem with LinkedIn for me, because I have this problem too, I constantly am finding people try to get a hold of me on LinkedIn like 5 days ago.
Yeah.
And it's because they don't, unlike Twitter, if somebody sends me a direct message on Twitter, guess what happens? My email bangs and tells me somebody just DM'd you. Like, I can go find these things. I get alerted when I'm when I'm added in a tweet. LinkedIn, for some reason, is adamant not to give you a heads up when somebody sends you a message. And I actually looked on a board the other day to find out, because I figured I was just an idiot and there was some function I didn't understand. And somebody asked the question, is there a way to get the messages to alert you? And the LinkedIn, like, actual support people were like, why in the world would you ever want to do that? And I was like, because I don't spend all day staring at LinkedIn.
Yeah. You could get them by email, but I mean, then you just get 9 million.
Yeah.
Everything that happens on LinkedIn by email.
See, I don't get that. I can get certain things that way, but now they pop up with their version of an instant messenger.
Yeah.
And that I can't figure out how to get sent over.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't like any social media, because for me, social media messages are a black hole. My emails where I kind of track what I need to respond to. And someone will, especially Facebook, someone messages me, whether personally or professionally on Facebook, forget about it. Like, I read it, and then a month later, I'm like, wait a minute, that person reached out to me. I'm like a big jerk, and I don't answer because I just forget. It falls off my radar. And I think email's honestly the best way to reach out to people, or in person.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm in Caroline's boat in the sense of I get so much email that things easily get lost. I mean, literally cannot keep up with all the email I get, as much as I try, and things just get lost. And I do tell people that if you've emailed me and I don't respond, go ahead and text me or ping me on Twitter or something. I do. I mean, so now, and you're probably all getting this too. I mean, what I get now is I'll get the same person who sends me an email, sends me something on LinkedIn, sends me a text on my phone, and it has all my different emails. So they email all my different email addresses, so then it just, like, all that much more cluttered, all my different channels from that one person sending me that one story. It gets kind of crazy. There is no good way. There is no good answer.
I think it's relationships, and that's the thing. You've got to figure out how to have. That's where conferences come in, I think, and you need to have relationships. You need to understand that who you're talking to and what do they write about. Try to get a sense. If you truly want to get it published in a certain place or certain places, sending these mass PR emails out probably isn't necessarily the best way to do it. And that's why, for me, them understanding that half the time I get stuff that is literally not even remotely something I would ever write about. Yeah. And I feel like they should know what you kind of tend to focus on and what interests you. That's the most, I understand the pressures of wanting to reach everybody, but
But what about, we're talking about,
ignores you?
We're talking about PR people here mostly. What about, I've just started my little legal tech company, and I'm trying to get somebody to pay attention to me, and I don't want to go hire a PR person. How does that person get on your radar? Is it just sending you an email? I mean, is it all about the catchy subject line, or how do they do that?
For me, it's pretty much explaining like how this product is different and how is it really solving a problem. Not just like, it's awesome, we use AI, machine learning, like not just buzzwords, just tell me what problem is it solving, how is it different from what's on the market. That always makes it easier for me to then look over the press release or the email and then send it over to Zach or Reese and say, okay, this is the angle, this is why I think we should cover it. And that for me makes it a lot more simpler.
Yeah. But that means you open the email in the first place. I mean that's something right there, I think.
Well, I think it's important for them to, the ones that I end up meeting with are oftentimes before I go to a large legal tech conference, I'll say on Twitter, no one pays attention. Like 3 weeks before, hey, I'm going to be there. I'm looking to talk about certain interesting things related to AI or the cloud. Reach out to me. And usually like 2 people respond. Like and the ones that respond early on, I'm like, you paid attention. And it's sort of up my alley, I'll meet with you. And so that's how I sometimes meet with these really small companies. And I like to talk to them because talking to the CEOs, to me, quite frankly, is oftentimes more interesting than talking to PR people or marketing people, And
I think you give more the benefit of the doubt. So with PRs, they almost need to make it more catchy. Whereas you can tell when you get a direct message from a CEO, I guess we've all done this long enough, you can tell, can't you? And they'll say, oh, hey, just wondering, how we go about it. And then I think I've got not more time just to go back to those people and just explain, say, hey, and give more feedback. Whereas I think we're probably a bit more cutthroat with the press releases, right? I think you have to very quickly say whether it's relevant, whether it's interesting, and we're much more likely to, they have to be, I think, have a lot more punchy heading and explain why. I think we give less benefit of the doubt to the people that are sending us a lot more press releases, probably.
Yeah. This is maybe my own question, but I wonder how you all, I think as Victor said earlier, we assume we're probably all getting the same pitches. And I assume we're all probably a little competitive about it in terms of reporting these things. So do you evaluate what you're going to write about in part based on the likelihood that somebody else has already, or is going to also write about it or not?
I mean, I certainly do, because I often look at a thing and think, is Bob or Nikki going to write about this first? Because you'll put it on the same outlet, and then I look like I've screwed up and put the same story twice on my own pages. But no, and I also am looking at different audiences, so I get a little bit more flexibility. I write slightly more, hey, people who don't care about tech, here's something techy. Whereas you tend to write more to people who are already trying to figure out what things are. I write to people who couldn't care less and try and get interest. So we have slightly different. So I don't feel nearly as much competitiveness as you all apparently do with each other. This is why I
don't know if anybody else does.
I'm here the referee, I guess.
I don't feel unhealthy. Like there may be one or two people that I might have a slightly unhealthy feeling of competition with. That's none of you lot. Like
you can name names. Just us here.
I actually like competition. I think competition is great. Healthy competition is a great thing. And actually, Bob, if you email something out and I haven't written, I'll be like, I can't swear. So I'll be like, damn, and I might quickly write something. And I don't see that. I actually feel like it's quite a positive thing. I think it's, and I don't, I think maybe I've grown up a little bit as well. Like I do love getting the scoops, and we still do try to do a lot of the breaking. I love nothing more than breaking something which isn't out there as you do, Bob. Like where something that's not press released. I love people when people come to me with something. Well, actually, it's that we all do. When something gives me something which is not press release, it's maybe not even going to be press release, and then you break it. That for me is the best, right? But I think we all have our fair share, and I think it's quite healthy to have a variety of different news sources available.
Yeah.
I don't break trends. I don't break news. I just write about trends. You know what I mean? So for me, it's less of a getting the scoop and more just looking at the big picture or how-tos, So for me, it's a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I had a discussion with one of my colleagues recently, actually. And I mean, we're we don't have the bandwidth. We don't have the manpower to be able to compete with the likes of an ALM or like a Bloomberg or like a Thomson Reuters as far as having it first and having it, getting it before anybody else, and making
neither do I, but it doesn't stop me from trying.
but that's never really been our model. Our model's always been more along the lines of we look at the trends. We look at, okay, this is why it's important. This is why I mean, our readers are really looking at more things like, okay, why should I care about this? What does this mean for my practice? What does it mean for me as a lawyer? And we have resources beyond just the journal, which are more conducive to like having that kind of okay, well, these are the people at the ABA that can talk to you about this, or these are the people that we know in the legal profession that can shed more light on these ethics opinions that relate to tech, or whether this program is good for you, for your practice and whatnot. So that's always been more of our model, not necessarily we have to get it first, because if that's the case, then we would. It would be a much different like ball game for us, and we'd have to really rethink how we do things.
Yeah,
I think there's a place for both, isn't there? It's nice to have the sort of analysis, and there's only so many scoops you can have anyway. And I think actually what's really interesting is I think the market is really there's a thirst for real understanding. So we're actually moving although I do love the scoop, that we're moving towards trying to do more analysis, so to really help people understand the decisions that they're having to come to. So that's something I think that we've moved more towards, and actually we're developing an entirely separate bit of our new brand attached to Legal IT Insider, which is going to look at best practice and knowledge sharing and all that kind of stuff to try to help people to evaluate. I think that there's been a shift in the market as well, in the audience, towards wanting more better understanding. So that's kind of where we're moving as well.
All right. Well, we beat that question to death, and nobody even asked it. So that's good.
There's a question, Bob.
Yeah, there are questions. There's a question. What is the worst pitch you ever got, and why? We've got questions popping up in both our Q&A and our chat thing here. But
Okay.
what's the worst pitch you ever got, and why? Does anybody?
Well, mine is someone pretending he knew me and he didn't, and I never met the guy. And other ones are people that I've actually talked to them or talked to their company a bunch of times and act like, let's tell you all about our company. I don't think we've ever connected with you. It's like, come on, pay attention. Have we met? Have we not met? Don't fool me into thinking you've met me when we haven't. I don't know you from Adam. I think that's a little offensive when people act like, hey, how are you? Like the best buddy. So.
I get the point, but as somebody with a terrible memory who is definitely the opposite side of that before, where I don't remember meeting with a company 2 legal techs ago, I feel like I have a tiny bit of sympathy for that one, because it can be tough. We all meet with a lot of people.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I would have no idea if they said they met with me. I might well, I don't know.
Oh yeah, me too. I think maybe the repeat. If you get sent something. And then you don't, you politely ignore it. And then they send it to you 200 more times. And in the end, you literally lose your rag and you're like, never send it to me again. That's probably the most annoying.
Yeah. Victoria, have you got any really bad pitches? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Victor.
No, I get my name misspelled sometimes, where they'll be like, they'll call me Vincent, or they'll call me like, dear Mr. Lee. And I'm just like, okay, come on. You typed in my email.
Yeah.
You typed in my email. It has my first and last name. You know what my name is. Like, why are you doing this?
Yeah. Oh, I get, dear Ms. Hill or dear Ms. Black or something. I mean, because you can tell, then they're just sending them out to everybody, right? But yeah.
For me, I guess it would just kind of like the echo what Victor was saying. When I get the emails and they call me Vanessa instead of Victoria, it's just like, you really didn't take the time to see V Hudgens. Like my email address is vhudgens@alm.com, but like you didn't do enough research to figure out my first name is Victoria. Like that's a little bit annoying. Or when, like what Caroline was saying about, they'll send you the email a bunch of times and you'll politely ignore it because you're not going to cover it. And then they follow up with a call and say, hey, did you see that email? I'm just wondering if you're interested in it. And I just have to say politely, oh, I saw that. I don't think we're going to cover that right now, but thank you for reaching out. Like that's kind of like the worst.
Yeah.
I think I may have actually done that, Victoria, once. I called you, Victoria, started off, and then we had a conversation in the middle, but I called you Vanessa, and I immediately said to her, I said, Victoria, not Vanessa. It was someone I did. I think I am actually, it might have been Vicky. I'm guilty of that, though. So
that happens all the time.
I apologize.
And then last name Hudgens. Some people say, oh, I was thinking about High School Musical. And I was like, okay, technically different last names. You spell it differently, but it's just like my name, Victoria, not Vanessa.
I apologize again.
No problem.
I think my favorites, though, are the ones that are just completely off the wall. Like somewhere along the way, and I have no idea how, I ended up on like HBO Television's PR distribution list. So anytime that there's a new show coming up on HBO, I will know about it because they will send it to my ALM email address. And it makes no sense whatsoever, but it always brings a smile to my face.
Yeah, I got on some bad PR lists. I get like press releases about like raves in Los Angeles or something, and like things like this. But I mean, what really drives me crazy is, I mean, we
probably need to spend more time on that one,
right? Actually. Yeah, I was going to say, is there something you're not telling us?
The ones that drive me crazy are the ones where, if you read my blog, you would know this because I called them out at times, but the people who just make these totally unfounded claims about their product in their press releases, that we are the first ever to do such and such, when in fact they're like the 50th to do it. They just either never bothered to research the field that they're developing a product in, or they just don't give a crap about the truth. And that, if they're going to lie to you about that, then what else are they lying about regarding their product, and that really drives me crazy.
Yeah, and that's still something that I struggle with because everybody's product is the best thing, right? It's this miracle like breakthrough innovative technology that's gonna do everything short of cure cancer, right? And it's just how do you evaluate that? Well, I mean, you can pretty much throw that out, but like I mean, just all the press releases say, okay, yeah, like we're the first one to do this, or no other product does this, or we're this and this, and it's just I mean, for me, I feel like if I see those buzzwords like that, we're the only one that does this, or we're the first one that does this, like unless that's really really true and really verifiable, I just it just goes.
Well, more often than not, it's easily what's the opposite of verifiable? I mean, it's easily debunked by just jumping on Google, and Googling that kind of product, and you'll find. Or for me, it's often that I've myself, one advantage to having been blogging for 18 years is I've covered a bunch of these things before, and I can just search my own blog and find examples of the same product. So
with COVID, I found that there's some stuff about I had one release where they said they've just gone live on our product and just before COVID, and it's completely saved their lives and been there the game changer, and it's meant that and I phoned them and it turned out that they went live in 2018 and they just decided to do a press release just now, and I was like, and then I had a bit of a tantrum.
It's before COVID. I don't see where the lie is.
Okay, yes, you should work on that PR team. But actually, it was an interesting story, and I may well still write about it, but it just annoyed me because it was like, actually, this is just wrong. And I would have looked like an idiot if I'd written it in the way that it had been written. I would have looked like an absolute idiot.
So, question not about sort of coverage so much, but about legal tech, is somebody was asking whether any of us have any predictions on future mergers and acquisitions. Anybody have any great insights on somewhere we're going to be surprised? Or
that's always tough.
There's going to be a lot, I think.
I see Zach wanting to answer this question.
No, I mean, no inside info or anything like that, but it does strike me with so many entrants into the contract space, so much money flowing in, so many startups in particular, that's got to start to consolidate sometime soon in a serious way. So if that's where I'm looking, it would be one of those, as of right now, mid-size contract companies in particular, looking for increased market share, increased capabilities, and gobbling up some of those startups.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the question is going to be what the impact of the recession is going to be on this, right? Because on the one hand, you're going to have a lot of companies who were seemingly moving along well, who are going to be screwed and have some valuable IP that's going to be attractive to someone. But on the flip side, you're going to have a lot of players in the legal tech market who don't have capital lying around because of all that's happened, who won't be able to take advantage of that. So like figuring out where people are and who has money in the bank when everybody else is running out of it is going to be the real question. Like you can't really predict it based on who logically should merge right now, because it might be dictated by wholly different concerns.
Right. Although I look at, one of the areas I keep looking at is legal research, and I keep feeling like somebody's got to gobble up somebody there. We've got a few of these, mid-tier legal research company, startups that we keep calling things like Casetext and Raw startups, but they've been around for like 8 years now, and they, in some ways, they're still trying to quite define what their space is, what their role, where they fit into this overall space. I think because you've got the dominant players that have been around forever. You've got the fast case and case maker that a lot of lawyers are just getting through their bar agreements, and then there's this whole other. And I just wrote this morning about another guy who just started a little legal research company. Like it was one guy. One man shop, or just started a legal research platform on his own. I love stories like that, but I don't think he's going to put Westlaw out of business or anything.
What's it called? It's got a really unusual name. I've forgotten his name.
Buzzy Site.
That's it. I read your piece.
Yeah, it turns out his name is Buzzy, so it's
okay. Yeah, it's cool. I really like it.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah.
But yeah, as you said, so with best practice, who got acquired by Latera, and for the reasons that Joe, you were just saying, so I think a lot of it was financial because the law firm cycle is so long, and a lot of the smaller, sorry, Zach, and a lot of the startups are going to struggle, particularly with COVID. I think with the retrenchment in spending. So I think that's going to generate potentially some whether you call them startups or slightly more established even companies, I think are going to find that the law firms' lack of spending, and we hear a lot about the lack of spending at the moment, everything that's not completely core. So I think it'd be interesting to see whether that presents opportunities for the bigger players to absorb some of the very attractive businesses that may otherwise have held out for a while longer.
Yeah.
Kind of to that end, I'll actually be extremely interested if we see more things like the United Lex Paul Hastings data science deal, where it's law firms selling things off to ALSPs or legal tech companies for that exact reason, because they're trying to cut costs a little bit. We've seen that a little bit in the past, but it wouldn't surprise me if that becomes at least a little bit more of a trend.
Yeah. If any of you, or if any of these questions sort of jump out at any of you, go ahead and call them out. I just one a little bit off, a little bit different than what we've been talking about so far. But if I'm understanding this, somebody is asking about working as a freelancer for your publication, and what's the best way, I guess, to approach you? Is it to write to write about specific topics, or should you present pitch ideas of your own to the publication? Or I know, Victor, you probably I don't know if you're using freelancers as much as you used to, but
we're using more. We're using them more because just because we've had we just need to do that just because of our staffing issues and whatnot. I think one thing that we do is that typically we'll want to see. Obviously, like freelancers can always email. Again, victor.li@americanbar.org. And send a resume, send some clips, just so we get an idea of like what kind of what your writing style is like. People don't have to have pitches per se, but obviously that if you have something that you're very passionate about or that you're very knowledgeable about, and that you really want to write about and think that it's right up our alley, then obviously we'd love to hear it. But for us, at least, and with my other editors too, we always share whatever like emails we get from like potential freelancers and whatnot. We're really looking more for people who, have subject matter knowledge and who are good writers. Like, because other things we can work on and whatnot. But those are the main things that we look at when we evaluate our freelancers and whatnot.
Yeah.
Can I just tack a query onto that question? Someone had emailed me, a young woman who just graduated from law school who had got a journalism degree, and she was asking for advice on breaking into legal journalism. So I was kind of wondering if I could tack that question onto you guys, to this one as well, to get some input on that on her behalf. If you guys had any, I gave her my advice, but I think it's difficult, and I told her start a blog, start trying to reach out, connect with people on Twitter, try and get to know these people somehow. Showcase your writing on the blog, because that way you can show a body of work and analytical thought, and so even if no one's reading your blog, you can show that to people when you're pitching something, that you're writing and what you're thinking about. But do you guys have any insight on that?
One thing I'd add, and I don't know, there are other programs that do this, but one platform when I was starting at Above the Law, so Above the Law, we're all lawyers, right? So first thing that any journalism student should do is go become a lawyer first for us. But so that's not really
she got a law degree and had journalism.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. But as far as what you were saying about blogging, getting to know people, when I was starting out, one thing I did was, and it's got a monthly subscription price, but I went to this Manage Flitter was the platform. And I think there are others like it that allows you to kind of mass follow people. Obviously, there are Twitter limits and all, but it was a useful tool for, you could say something like, the stuff that I write is similar to what Above the Law writes. So let me look at, and it will sort for you. Here's the last 5,000 people who followed Above the Law. And you can go, oh, I can pitch things to these people or write at these people or follow these people and see if they'll follow me back. And it was a useful way of figuring out different niche areas where people shared ideas. So I was able to kind of build out my following that way. And so that's a useful, maybe outside the box piece of advice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would just kind of echo all of that. I mean, I do think it's, I agree with you, Nikki, that just getting published as much as you can, even for no money to start, is valuable. And then engaging with people around what you're publishing. I mean, get on Twitter and get on social media and not in an obnoxious way, but call attention to what you're writing. Maybe try and get some people engage with people about the topics you're writing about, and make sure people are aware of you.
And be ballsy. Like so when I started out, so I was a lawyer and I didn't have any journalism training, but I wanted to be a journalist. And I just phoned up the features editor of Legal Week and I said, "Can I buy you a coffee? I would love to be a journalist." And so I went and I bought her a coffee, and she went, "Well, actually, I've got a job going. Do you want to apply?" And they sat me down at a computer, and I didn't realize I was supposed to use the computer. I hand wrote the piece, and for some reason they still gave me a job. But I think it's about making those direct connections and not being afraid to actually reach out to people direct, because we're, I think everybody's quite human and we won't always help. But I think actually it's about having the confidence to go straight to the source.
For what it's worth, it looks like she's actually here, Raquel Richards. She just was thanking us for I told her that we might answer that question today. So go ahead. Sorry, Zach.
I was just going to say, the only other thing I'd add is don't get discouraged if it doesn't work the first time or two, just because we are A, all very busy, and B, journalism is an industry where there isn't much open at times, and there tend to be cuts somewhat more often than other industries. It's like, say, freelance budgets may go down kind of at a whim. So if there isn't something open right away, don't say, okay, then it's never going to happen. Check back, and actually, if that's something you want to do, work for it that way.
Well, and it's worth pointing out that you don't have to work for a publication to work as a writer in legal. I mean, I have a blog. It's my blog. I'm not writing for other. I mean, I do write a column on Above the Law, and I've certainly written for the ABA Journal over the years as a freelancer. But I don't get rich off of my blog, but I do make some money off of my blog, and that's and if I were a better business person, I probably could actually make more money off of my blog. But that's a truly a viable option these days, is to just start a publication on your own, and you need to build up a readership, and you need to build up a voice and a name for yourself. But totally possible.
And actually, that's a great thing about the growth of blogs, right? So I think that there's been this real explosion, and I think from that point of view, my tip would probably be, especially when you are just learning, my dog's scratching to come in, when you're learning, is engage, try and engage with people and share their voice, right? So don't pretend to be the expert, especially when you're starting out. That you're not going to be, your opinion is not necessarily going to be that expansive, but actually, if you can help people convey their voice, if you've got the ability with your writing to help people convey people who are knowledgeable, if you can give them a platform to help them share their opinions, then that can be really valuable.
Yeah. So I don't know, we can take a couple more questions and skip our roundtable this week. Unless there was any stories that anybody really wanted to be sure we talk about this week.
There's an interesting question about virtual conferences, but
I
that's
was
not on
just
the
going to say, Bob cannot skip that one.
No, right.
Nikki,
right, and that actually lets us talk about Nikki's top story of the weekend. Well, that wasn't your top story, but something you wrote.
It was like 3 weeks ago. Like, she's been trying to get to this conference question in forever.
Anyway, Looks like we've run out of time, so
take that up next week in our virtual edition. No, good. Gee, what do we do about virtual conferences, Nikki?
Well, I just wrote about that in Above Law. It was published yesterday. I think everyone in legal tech should listen to me and follow my lead on this. You need to have avatar-based virtual conferences, because virtual conferences are boring. Virtual conferences are flat. it's just a bunch of Zoom. Like people go to conferences for the CLE credits, and of course the courses are interesting. But when you go to these larger conferences, you're going for the networking, you're going for the interaction, you're going to check out what everyone actually has in the expo hall. And you certainly don't just sit down and read all the marketing material. You want to go to the expo hall and talk to people. You want to interact with the people at the conference. And these flat virtual conferences that they have now don't do that. It's just Zoom's, webinar after Zoom webinar, or just webinar after webinar. And then, a list of people that are exhibiting, and then you click on it and you see their marketing materials, and you can usually text chat and maybe video chat. But I think that the way to make it the best it can possibly be is to use these avatar-based conferences. There's only a few platforms out there. I wrote about them in my TO. There's 3 of them, but TO is the only one I know off the top of my head.
Hoova was one.
Thank you, Hoova. And then the one that someone told me they liked the best after trying them out was, I'll put or can you put a link to this since you're looking it up?
I'm getting there. Yep.
Yeah. But so essentially you create an avatar, you go to the conference, and there's a virtual world. It's like Second Life, if anybody knows Second Life, where you walk in and there are different doors you can go through, and you can go to watch different CLEs. You can go into the expo hall. You can go to networking events. And when you walk up to other avatars, the closer you get, the louder their voices get, and you can talk to them depending on how the platform works. And you can have video conferences if you go to a booth, you can have a video conference with the person at the booth. There's an avatar at the booth. And I just think that it at least adds this element of feeling like you're in a place, going to places, and actually interacting with people. You can sit at a table at lunch and talk to all the people at your table, and eat your lunch. I don't know. Yeah. I think someone should have the guts to actually do this. I think it would have to be in legal tech, because lawyers in general would have a tough time with this, and the only ones that might think it would be cool would be the techies. So
yeah, at the next conference, look out for me. I'm a level 12 elven paladin. So, but yeah.
No. You probably are. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
We get like Fortnite avatars. We all do a dance. I think you're right, Nikki. So obviously we had the iManage conference this week. They did a great job in terms of the content. I actually really enjoyed the content. And the second day, I kind of got my head into the space where they had the content was pre-recorded, but they had live chat during the sessions, which actually was terrible trying to multitask. To be honest, I've realised I absolutely can't multitask. But then in the booths, as you say, the content is one thing, but then it's all the rest of it, which is just you go to the booths and I go, hey, and they talk about virtual swag bag. I must be honest with you, I probably didn't spend enough time trying to do that, but I'd be interested if anybody out there listening has spent a lot of time trying to interact with the booths and their experience. But I think you're right. It's just that, how do you make it personal? And it's all very static, isn't it, and one-dimensional. Yeah. So you're right. I mean, I'd be interested to see whether the avatar idea did change that.
Yeah, I've seen some good presentations, some good programs at these virtual conferences, but the whole networking part of it just doesn't work at all. And I've gone into a few of those supposed networking rooms where, it's like it's the Brady Bunch view on Zoom, and we're all kind of staring at each other saying, well, now what do we do? And,
I've read people that have reviewed these platforms that say initially it felt a teeny bit weird, but in no time I was immersed in it, and it really did feel like I was navigating a conference hall, or a conference. So yeah, I'm hopeful. Yeah. I mean,
those platforms, I don't know those specifically, but it sounds like they have the same features of, I've been dealing a lot with spatial chat, which for other things, which is valuable because you pick up your little face and move it to a corner, and you move out of a way, and then they can't hear you and other people. So breakout rooms are created naturally. And that's the key to a networking, is when that becomes natural and you don't have to sit and watch all 30 people talk at once.
Yeah. We're getting, so there's been a couple of more questions about the whole freelancing thing. And I would encourage, if it looks like it's probably the same person asking, to maybe just kind of reach out to some of the editors on here. And I'm sure they'd be happy to talk to you more about that. Or, if anybody wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to tell them what I know about it. I used to be a legitimate editor at a real publication. So I have some experience in that. Let's see, what else? Any other questions jump out to anybody here that they want to what's your perfect story was a question. What story would most excite you to write about? I would be afraid to ask that one.
Today I posted a picture of a defense attorney at a hearing on Zoom, and it is clear he is not wearing a shirt, and it is not entirely clear if there's anything at all on at all. So yeah, that's my perfect tech story. There you go.
Coming from the above the law angle, that does sound
Yeah.
right.
If he appeared as an avatar, it would have gone a lot better.
See, again, there you go.
I thought of you, Joe, the other day. In fact, yesterday, someone was chatting to me. She was on a call. She was chairing a big call. She's at a big financial institution, and someone flushed the loo during the just as she. I was like, takes me back to our first session.
I think the loo is so much better of a word than toilet, right? The loo. We all need to start saying that.
Yeah. It's all. So, if we had talked about stories this week, we were going to talk about this story titled "Wrongfully Accused by an Algorithm" that was in the New York Times this week, which relevant to what we're talking about here in some way is that the author of that story is Kashmir Hill, who's a really fantastic writer about tech and privacy and whatever issues.
And an above the law editor.
That's what I was going to say. Where did Kashmir get started? I think she was a paralegal or something originally, but she then got into journalism and was at Above the Law. So it's a stepping stone to greater things. Not that you need any stepping stones, Joe. But
for anybody but me, yeah. No, everybody else seems to be stepping everywhere.
Well, there really was just. I mean, we can't go in depth, I guess. But there was a lot of movement in a couple different jurisdictions. There, one city, I think it was Boston, banned facial recognition.
It was Boston, yep.
Yeah, and a lot of it is because of the inherent, and then the case that Molly had suggested, I saw her commenting here, she couldn't agree with us today, but the case she'd suggested we talk about was the one where someone had been convicted because the algorithm.
Yeah, Molly's in the audience. Why do we don't have her in the panel? I don't know.
I'm not sure. but it's because there's inherent bias in those, and I've talked about that in the past, but it's becoming more and more apparent with the way law enforcement's misusing it and abusing it throughout all of these Black Lives Matter protests as well. So in some ways, I think that's giving it a little bit of momentum to have us re-examine that technology, because it truly is problematic in so many ways when law enforcement uses it.
Yeah, I mean, there were some cities even before, like all the protests, like whatnot, that were restricting it or banning it or putting moratoriums on it or whatnot. But it just kind of seemed like until the spate of protests, that like nothing was probably going to stop it from becoming more widespread, because it's such an important technology that a lot of people rely on, and it's such a huge moneymaker for like companies like Amazon. And so it is interesting how like now I mean, I guess it would have taken something like huge to kind of stop the momentum that it was seemingly building, because it seemed like it was only a matter of time before you walk out and it's like what was that TV show that like I mean, there are a bunch of TV shows, but like
Black Mirror.
Yeah, or just like anyone could just like scan in on you from like no matter what angle you were at or what was in the way, or they could recompose your face regardless of what was what was obstructing and whatnot. And it's just obviously that's a pretty scary scenario, but who knows? Who knows where it's going? So it is interesting how like it seems like the brakes have just kind of been pushed on that, and now you have a lot of like Amazon and companies like that kind of reevaluating where they like what their business model, what they like what they use it for and who they sell it to.
And I wrote a piece about this group. I posted it to you guys ahead about the likes of Google, Microsoft, a bunch of that. There were 1,700 AI experts, professors from Harvard, MIT, a bunch of them. And they came out in the strongest possible terms against a paper being published by a company that I'm not familiar with, called Springer Publishing, called a deep neural network. I'll post a link to this in the chat, but a deep neural network model to predict criminality using image processing, basically using facial recognition to predict criminal behavior. And they said, in the strongest terms, they said machine learning programs are not neutral. Research agendas and the data sets they work with often inherit dominant cultural beliefs about the world. I won't repeat the whole thing, but they came out in the strongest sense and said the uncritical acceptance of default assumptions leads to discriminatory design in algorithmic systems. It's really worth reading. They've said they've but they've said that it keeps. It's almost like the worrying thing is that if enough people keep publishing these papers, then it develops a kudos or an acceptance that it doesn't deserve, and there's a worry that will happen, right? So I think that it's really interesting that this week, I mean, for obvious reasons, but there's been a whole, there's been a weight of different people coming from different angles to sort of just either give warning signs or discredit what's being written.
Right. The Cashel story is amazing. I mean, not just for the technology aspect of it, but I mean, just yet another one where the police handling of the case was just like totally racist. I mean, it was just, I mean, like literally, it was like a all black people look alike kind of scenario. I mean, the guy in the picture did not look anything like the guy they arrested, other than he was a heavyset black man. I mean, that's really what it came down to. So it's definitely worth reading. But all right. Well, any other words of wisdom or topics that anybody wanted to make sure we hit on before we wrap up for the week? No.
We'll be covering next week, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, if we do this next week,
next week is holiday.
Probably we should do Thursday or something.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Maybe I can email you all and figure it out. But Friday is probably not a good day next week. And maybe we don't do it at all. We'll see. I'll email everybody and we'll figure out whether it makes sense to do it again. But all right.
Yeah, happy holiday.
Yeah. Thanks. We're going to be celebrating our independence from.
Yeah, we took you down.
Yeah.
We'll be
Okay, no hard
celebrating our
feelings.
independence from quarantine.
Well, I tell you what we're celebrating. This is more important on the 4th of July in the UK, or the pubs open. So that's what we're celebrating.
COVID stew, but okay.
It's open here for many, many reasons.
Yeah. All right. Well, hope everybody has a good weekend, and thanks to all of you for participating. Thanks to everybody who listened today, and see you maybe next week.